Thank you, Evelina. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, everything I know about team coaching in about 45 minutes, or at least everything that'll fit in 45 minutes. Well, Teams Unleashed, what's that about? Well, it's all about creating the conditions that support teams to achieve their potential. It's about removing barriers. It's about helping teams acquire team collaboration skills and competencies. In my view, in my experience, it's enormously inspiring and gratifying work. So let's get started. Start with, well, why team coaching? Set some context for team coaching's role. Well, the trend in organizations is very clear. Organizations continue to put more and more emphasis on teams as the means to improve organizational performance. They're forming more teams for one of a couple of reasons, either because they've squeezed everything they possibly can from individual performers, or because they realize that teams working together can accomplish things that individuals simply can't acting alone. Teams are hot, and that's happening worldwide. I can tell you from my experience, our work covers about 16 different time zones. At the same time, pressure is on to get results and to do more with less. This increased emphasis on teams comes with a built-in assumption, and that assumption is that people know how to work together effectively on teams. Well, it's an assumption. We now have data from more than 10 years of team assessment results. So take a guess. What percentage of those teams would you say rate themselves as high performing? Would you say 20 or 30% rate themselves as high performing? 5 or 10%? What would be your guess? What percentage of those teams rate themselves high performing?
Philip, I'm seeing anything from about 5% all the way up to 80.
All right. Well,
so guess is all over the board.
Yeah.
For the most part, somewhere around 20 to 30.
Okay. Our data shows less than 10% rate themselves high performing. 1 in 10. It's an enormous gap, and it's the reason why team coaching is a growing specialty within the field of coaching. It's also why the time is right, in my view, to take a stand for professionalism in team coaching. So where are we headed today? It'll be my pleasure to show you a team effectiveness model and team coaching approach that is research-based, it's practical, proven. It's a methodology that's now been used with more than 4,000 teams worldwide. The assessment is in 22 languages. It's an approach that I believe sets the same high standards for professionalism in team coaching that the ICF has helped establish for individual coaching. But let's be clear. Organizations don't want team coaching. What organizations want, they want what team coaching can deliver. The field of team coaching is still quite new. Organizations, generally speaking, are not out shopping for team coaching as a solution to their team performance issues. They're actually much more familiar with team building sessions or training that, although they can be very valuable, have great temporary impact, they've generally failed to deliver the results organizations want because there's the lack of follow-up. So enter team coaching as a viable change process. Team coaching is still coaching. It's coaching. It's a process, not an event. So it includes discovery and ongoing work in an action and learning cycle that changes behavior over time. If we just take a brief look at the ICF definition of coaching, we've got partnering with clients, in our case that's teams, in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And that's what I would highlight, those last bits, the personal and professional potential. As coaches, we see the potential in our clients. That's part of the, I think it's part of the gift of the work, helping our clients achieve that potential is, it's really what we do. It's about making a difference. Team coaching is coaching. One-time events, as we mentioned, can be very powerful, but they're not coaching, they're interventions. As coaches, we understand that change takes place over time. So coaching provides the follow-through necessary that integrates the experience that team members have and the learning that they get from those experiences and new behaviors. They integrate that learning into their everyday work life. It provides new ways of interacting that require practice to incorporate behavior into the team interactions. So there's this action cycle of setting goals for new ways of working together, planning how we're going to do that, setting structures in place, being accountable for the actual outcome, and then designing new next steps. And you could put a circle around this action cycle and call it a learning cycle because there's learning at every step of that action cycle. Let's start to look at a team coaching model. Coaching starts by envisioning a new destination. Sets an action plan in place to reach that new destination. And then coaching provides the support. Well, if the goal is better team interaction, better team performance, let's start with a model for highly effective teams. And we're going to follow Stephen Covey's advice. We're going to start with the end in mind, with a question, what makes great teams great? Well, I actually have an answer to that question, and I'm not going to tell you. Instead, I'm going to do what we do with teams, and that is we have a team exercise we use with teams that you can also use with teams. We call it the best team exercise. We learned it from Appreciative Inquiry, David Cooperrider's work. It's very simple. We're going to do this exercise online this morning or this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you're calling in from. So the exercise goes like this. Scan back in your memory to a really great team you've been on. It stands out in your memory. It's a team that could be a work team, could be a sports team, could be music or theater or a one-time event. But scan back in your memory to that great, memorable team. And then let's look at what were the qualities that set that team apart from all other teams. And you can use the chat box, and let's just gather a bunch of what are the qualities from your experience that that created that best team experience for you.
So I'll share what I'm seeing, Phil. We've got a lot coming in through the questions box. So great leadership,
yeah,
effective communication, a lot of trust, loyalty, feedback, harmony, shared goals and a shared mission, psychological safety,
yep,
playfulness, openness, the team above self, and clarity about what the team wants to achieve, respect, humility, personal responsibility to the team and its outcomes, mutual respect, true collaboration. The work that was done was dependent on each other. All team members were fully engaged, shared values, team members being willing to be vulnerable with each other, personal accountability, great communication, norms, diversity, active listening, competency, I think that covers good atmosphere. I think that covers all of them.
Yep, there's probably 365, since there are 365 attendees, there's probably 365 at least qualities.
Yes,
we could
and
tap into.
The last one, Philip, is that this is a really powerful exercise.
Yeah, it is. Well, here is a sample of some of the things that often come up when we do this exercise with teams. We harvest those qualities of great teams, and you can see many of the words on this list are the words that Evelina was already sharing with us. So it's very clear that the people on this call, that you already know what makes great teams great. So the obvious question would be, if you already know what makes great teams great, why aren't all teams great teams? The answer to that question is, I think teams know what makes great teams, they don't know how. So the thing to keep in mind is this: all those best teams that you were just remembering and recalling, all those best teams happened by accident. It was the right people, the right mission, the right skill sets, supportive, empowering culture, but it was by accident. And as we know very well, by accident is not a viable business strategy. So that's where team coaching comes in. It can make the difference for teams and organizations to transfer what teams know into how they behave. Well, we're going to look at this list, and we're going to look at it in a special way. And the special way is this. When Alexis did the original research for she's my business partner, and she's the one who developed the team diagnostic model and assessment. When she did the original research, she made a long list of best team qualities, just like we did. And looking at that list, she realized the qualities could be divided into two basic categories. One of those categories would be, since teams exist to produce results, I'm going to say that again, teams exist to produce results. No other reason to have a team except that the team delivers some results. On one dimension, we can include the conditions necessary to get the job done. And here's a short list of those things. We need a common vision and clear goals. We need to be action-oriented. We need accountability, effective decision-making, empowering leadership, and a smart use of the resources. The second category is conditions necessary in order for a team to collaborate, to work together. So you can have a team of great individual performers, but if they don't have trust and respect, if they don't communicate, if they don't know how to disagree with each other, if they don't value differences, the team's just not going to be able to achieve its mission and get the results that it promises. So in our model, these two categories show up like this. There's a productivity dimension, alignment, goals and strategies. You can read the list. That's the productivity dimension, getting the job done. And then there is the positivity dimension, trust and respect, communication, camaraderie, that social aspect of belonging to a team and so forth. So those are the two dimensions in our model. Positivity, by the way, is a word we borrowed from emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman's work. When I'm working with teams, if they see that word positivity and they start to roll their eyes, or you can tell they think it means being happy all the time, I will suggest to them they can use the word engagement if positivity feels a little too soft. It's basically the same thing. Well, two dimensions, and graphically we can draw a horizontal line for the productivity dimension, the get the job done, and somewhere on that line teams would land. They might be high productivity teams, meaning they've got great capacity to make decisions, they're well aligned, they're very accountable and so forth. Or they'll be down there on the left end, low productivity teams. We also know that the culture of the team, the infrastructure of relationships has great influence on the ability of the team to get the job done. So how people work together matters. So in that vertical, we've got high positivity teams at the top, and of course, low positivity teams at the bottom. And what that gives us is a familiar 4-quadrant model with high productivity on the right side, low productivity on the left, high positivity above the line, and low positivity below the line. So you can imagine what life would be like in each of those different corners of the model. And in fact, we're going to take a little visit to each of the 4. In a sort of welcome to my world, imagine that you work on a team that's there in the red. It's high productivity, low positivity. So imagine what it's like in that world. My guess is most of you have been on a team like that with a lot of drive and a lot of get the work done and nose to the grindstone, as we say sometimes in English. It can be a competitive environment. High productivity, it's red for a reason. Alarms going off, fires to put out. So the question is, what's valued in a high productivity, low positivity team? What's valued? Getting to the bottom line, achieving results, almost at any cost, even human cost. What's it like on a team like this over a long period of time? Well, you can imagine what it's like. Burnout, turnover. It's a rough place to be. And it's what most organizations reward. It's the place that gets the incentive. And it's not sustainable over a long period of time. Well, let's go diagonally up to the green. This is that high positivity but low productivity team. So imagine what it's like in this world. Very collegial, not much sense of urgency in this world. No emphasis really on getting results, a lot of emphasis on relationship. So one of the questions would be, what is taboo? What's discouraged? What's not okay in this world? Well, sometimes what's not okay is really driving for results. New team members that come from a high productivity background, they are going to be incorporated into a new culture. Ask yourself, what's decision-making like in this world? Well, a lot of emphasis on relationship and consensus and people getting along. That's that high positivity, low productivity world. Okay, slip down into the low productivity, low positivity, the low of both. And it's a world that sometimes is the result of circumstances. Merger, acquisition, reorganization, when there's disruption in the cultural world, it can often become low productivity and low positivity until it's sorted out. It's one of the reasons team coaching works in that environment is it accelerates the process of recreating a new culture. Questions here would be, what do people say to each other in this world? Well, there's a lot of criticism and blame and a sense of failure or hopelessness in this world. That becomes the mindset in a low productivity, low positivity team, a mindset of helpless, out of control. Now the blue, that's the aspiration. That's the high productivity and high positivity world. It's where that 10% land. It's 1 in 10 teams start there. About 30% to 40% of teams who engage in a team coaching process will end up in high productivity, high positivity. And teams all move in that general direction. They don't all achieve high. So the questions here would be, what's an image or metaphor for life in this world, this challenging, inspiring world of collaboration, combination of we work hard and we really have a sustainable culture? And that leads to another question, which is, okay, we're now a high team. What will sabotage our success? What will actually, if we don't pay attention, what will undermine what we have created together? Great question for a high team. So that's the basic model. Team coaching, well, before we go there, the real world of teams. So the real world of teams is, teams don't normally occupy, one exact quadrant. There's a range of capacity or competency in productivity and positivity. So what we're looking at here are two examples, real teams, where the team on the left, for example, has quite a wide spread of, in some ways it's a high positivity team, in some ways it's a low positivity team. So there's some work to be done in that positivity area. On the team on the right, again, there's quite a spread on the productivity dimension. Some ways they have the capacity to be a highly productive team, and in some ways they've got a lot of work to be done. So we'll be closing the gap from left to right, moving into that upper right corner, more up into the blue. That's what the real world of teams looks like. So these are graphics from the team diagnostic assessment. And here's the second layer of that same assessment. It's the team selfie. So here's a picture. Again, it's a real team. And on the left side of this diagram, from team leadership through our ability to manage resources, make decisions, be proactive, and so forth, around to alignment, those are the 7 productivity factors, getting the job done. And on the right side, starting with trust and respect, moving around to optimism, those are the 7 positivity factors. So this is a real team. This is a picture that they drew from their results before starting a team coaching process. So if you were on this team and this was the picture that your team drew, where would your eyes naturally go? Well, it would go to, likely, the low scores, right? I mean, we all went to school and got our grades, and the grades were never, well, when they weren't 100, we were always like discouraged about closing the gap between where we are and what the perfect score would be. So teams would look at a low score for trust or goals and strategies or optimism and so forth. In our work with teams, we put as much emphasis or more on where is the team strong, because the team can leverage what they're doing well to do the work that they want to improve on. The other thing to notice about this particular model is the factors in the model are already the everyday language of teams. So the benefit for me, for you as a coach, is when you show this picture to the team, you can get a coaching conversation started instantly. You don't have to reinterpret the assessment model to understand what does that really mean to us in everyday work terms. The language is already there in the everyday language of teams. So team coaching, we've got a model. Now team coaching takes place in 3 phases, and that first phase is discovery, it's assessment, it's creating an action plan. Basically what it takes to get underway. So
And Phil, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before you move on to the next piece, we've got a few questions that have come in. Could we take a few of those now?
Of course.
Great. So first one was, do the participants have permission to use the concepts or the slides from this presentation?
Yes, they do.
Okay, awesome. And a series of questions came in about the team selfie. I wonder if you could back up to that slide.
I can do that.
So what people are wondering about is what is the assessment tool that is used to build this selfie?
Okay.
And what is the significance of having the 7 factors for productivity and positivity? So, you know, why not 5 factors? Can you share a little bit about the development of the 7 factors?
So starting there, basically Alexis, my business partner, spent almost 3 years researching what are the qualities that research says are necessary in order for teams to be effective in creating results. And from that research, she picked these 7 for productivity and 7 for positivity to create a balance of the factors or conditions necessary to create results, to get work done, and the factors necessary to get along with each other while getting the work done, the collaborative, basically the infrastructure that makes it possible for teams to collaborate. So about 3 years of research led to that particular model. I've been asked, you know, 14 factors seems like a lot. Patrick Lencioni, for example, has just 5 in his model. So what we did was we put a picture like this up on the screen and we said, all right, so if 14 is too many, pick the one you think is not necessary. And after looking at it for a while, we decided, you know what? All of them are necessary. Different teams will score differently, of course, but this constellation of 14 really seems to make sense to teams. And the assessment that Alexis created to go with the model, team diagnostic assessment, it's 80 items, takes about 20 minutes for a team member to complete. It's all online. It's in 22 different languages. I'm happy to answer specific questions about the training and the tools and so forth, and we'll give you a little indication at the end of how you can get more answers to those questions.
Mm-hmm. And Phil, there's another question around, can there be spread not just along the vertical but also the horizontal axis? Do you tend to see that?
Yeah. The box will look different for every team. Sometimes it'll be bigger, sometimes it'll be smaller. It'll be a unique picture for any particular team.
Mm-hmm. A really good question came in about, when trust is low, how are the other dimensions able to function at a higher level?
That would be a great question for the team. There's a perfect team coach's question. Here's trust is low. How is it possible on this team that you've got a low score for trust, but your accountability is one of the highest? Explain that to me. And what they're doing is explaining to each other, where does trust show up on this team or not, and what is the impact of a lack of trust on the other factors in the model. So the question this person asked is an example of an ideal team coaching question. Mm-hmm. It's we're turning it back to the team. How do you account for this? What's going on your team that would tell this story? Mm-hmm. Good for now.
Just to clarify, so in terms of the selfie here, is it an average of all the team members' results or the result of one person's perception?
It's the average team scores for all team members in those 14 categories.
All right. So another question is around, is there something maybe missing in this model? And specifically what Alvaro brought up is conflict management. How is that maybe represented in terms of team's ability to manage conflict here?
Constructive interaction is that place in our model where we would talk about conflict on teams. What we know about high-performing teams is they have figured out, or they have learned, how to disagree with each other wholeheartedly, openly, for the sake of something that's important to the team. So it's not about the people, it's about the process or the outcome. So absolutely, managing effectively conflict on teams is one of the 14 areas that we would have the team identify.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Phil. I'll just share one last question with you. So this is from Timothy. So since you mentioned to look at the high scores instead of the lower scores in the team selfie, does that mean it's better for the team to really focus their energy on developing more on those high scores or really leveraging those instead of improving their lower scores?
Well, teams want to improve the scores that are showing up low, and for good reason. There's a way that all 14 are interdependent, so you can be working on setting better goals more effectively, and it'll have an impact on how you communicate with each other. It can build trust and respect or a more positive outlook. So there's a way that they are interdependent, they relate to each other. It's like you can pull on any one of those strings and it'll affect all of the other strings in the model. And I would say working with teams, there's a balance between getting stronger in areas that are already strong and improving in areas that are not so strong. And one of the advantages of a team is that we have different strengths within the members of the team that make it possible for the team to improve in all 14 areas.
Great. Reminds me of a quote by John Muir that says, when we tug on a single thing in nature, we find it attached to everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is the ecology of team.
Mm-hmm.
So John Muir was going to borrow that in the future. Okay, 3 phases. The first is discovery, assessment, and action plan. Basically says you are here on the map, so where is here? This is where the coaching begins with these core coaching questions. What's working on this team? What's not working on this team? Where does that show up? You know, specifically on this team, if accountability is a low score, you know, what's missing? If it's a high score, what are you proud of? What's that? Say more about that strength. What is it that you want as a team? What would that look like, and what are the stepping stones to get there? What would success look like for this team? So those are all great questions to get started. And the really important point, is the power of team coaching is not in the conversation the team has with you, team coach. The power of team coaching is the conversation the team has with each other. And this is a difference that team coaching makes. These curious questions that are natural for coaches, they're not about getting a report to me, the team coach, to have a better understanding. They're really about ways to generate, to get a conversation going within the team, because that's where the work will really happen. And this dynamic is one of the differences between individual and team coaching. With individual coaching, it's a conversation between me and you, between the two of us. With team coaching, the power of the conversation is within the team. So coaching starts with discovery, a point on the map, point A, a destination, point B, and the coaching is the structure for everything in between points A and point B, creates an action plan, and like all coaching action plans, it includes action of two kinds: goals to reach and new practices to put in place. So that's the discovery assessment phase. Phase 2 would be the ongoing coaching. Lots of different ways to set up the ongoing coaching sessions. Typically, I'll say, if the coaching session is going to be in person with a team, a typical arrangement might be 6 monthly sessions of 2 or 3 hours. So that'd be one example of an ongoing coaching plan. If it's virtual team coaching, where the team coaching is going to be, we're going to be working with a geographically dispersed team, so it needs to be done in a virtual environment, then the team coaching sessions are likely to be more frequent, maybe twice a month, and shorter, more like maybe 90 minutes. So then the question is, what do you actually do in those team coaching sessions? So we've got an action plan. We've scheduled these ongoing sessions. What are we going to do in the sessions? Okay, here's a simple template for an ongoing coaching session. It starts with get present. Team members are busy. They're often distracted by everything that's going on at work. We need a way to get present. There'll be follow-up, accountability, learning and action for that follow-up. This is, after all, a coaching model, so we want to be able to incorporate accountability, learning, and action into the session. It's possible there'll be some kind of team training or an activity or an exercise. Again, training for improving team skills or interactive experiential exercises have their place in team coaching, but the place is linked to integrating that exercise into the learning of the team so that it becomes part of the ongoing life of that team, not just an experience sort of isolated in time. An action session coaching is recommended in our methodology, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And finally, completion with appreciation and next steps for the next upcoming ongoing coaching session is just that sort of pattern. Well, let's look briefly at this action session coaching. An action session coaching is an opportunity for the team to be in action doing the work the team normally does in the context of coaching. So I know some of the people on this community of practice session are trained and certified and experienced in action learning methods. So if that's the case, you already know the value of the work with teams. Carry on. And you may want to adapt what you know about action learning to more of a coaching model. And here's what I mean by that. Action learning coaching is a term that is sometimes used for action learning. And as a coach, a professional coach, I'd rather call action learning a facilitation process rather than a coaching process. Facilitation focuses on the process that leads to a specific resolution. It's typically completed in one session, where coaching as a model has a broader change initiative. Our goal is really to develop the resourcefulness of a team to handle all sorts of issues over time, and not just the one that's current for today. Well, so that's the background. Here's how it works. Team picks an issue to discuss as a team. They're going to do their real work. It's an issue that's relevant, timely. It's an issue that they have the ability to actually resolve, so it's actionable by this team. The outcome might be a decision or a plan but there is an intended outcome. There's a time frame set, like for the next 30 minutes or 45 minutes. It's best if the team comes to that coaching session with a topic already in hand, maybe not the most contentious or hottest topic, but something important and meaningful for the business. As a coach, my role is to observe the team in action. I have permission to intervene with a question or an observation as part of the team's learning. My focus is on the interaction between team members, while the team's focus tends to be on the content of the issue that they're discussing. So I'm looking below the surface, the content, below the content, at how does the team listen, how do they interact with each other, what are the dynamics below the surface, and harvest the learning with the team in this coaching interaction. So what did you learn about decision making in the half-hour conversation you just had? What did you learn about how you communicate together as a team? Where was trust evident in the conversation you just had? Where was it missing? And so on. So that becomes a structure, part of the structure for ongoing coaching sessions. So what does the team coach bring to the team coaching process would be the next question. What are the competencies and skills? And that's where I'm going to go next. I'm so glad you asked about competencies and skills, because we're going to introduce you to the team coaching Pentasphere very briefly. I'm looking at my clock and I know I've got just a couple of minutes left here, so we've got time for questions. I promised in the material you got that I would include some information about the 5 team coaching competencies, and so that's where we're headed. There are 5 in our team coaching model. They're like 5 different lights shining on the team, and they're shining at all times. So the art of the work for a team coach is choosing which of those 5 competencies to apply at any given moment. So let's briefly run through them. Competency number 1, system aware. A team is a living system. It has a past and a present and an anticipated future. It has a personality. If you've been on a team, you know that. And it has rules of how things are done around here that are embedded in the system that new team members learn. As a team coach, I need to be aware that this team operates as a system, and that much of the information about what makes this team effective or ineffective is below the surface. It's in that system of behavioral norms. So competency number 1, system aware. Competency number 2, so where system aware is the big picture, tuned in is selecting a frequency within the big picture. So that might be listening for listening for the content, listening for how the team handles difficulty, listening for what's being said and what's not being said. So I'm tuned in like different channels on the old radio. Third is being a reflective observer. It's to be an observer with a job to do, and the job is to reflect back to the team what you see as the team coach, to be a mirror, to identify the different voices on the team and to help them find allies who see things the same way, to share perspectives that the team has or common beliefs that the team has, to reflect back to the team. The 4th competency is to be actively present. All coaching requires this sort of 100% present in the moment with the team. As a team coach, I need to also be aware of my responsibility for the process that we're in. So I'm actively involved in the whole process. At the same time, I'm actively present in the moment. So both need to be in place. Self-management is one of the skills in actively present. And finally, to be a team coach means to have the competency to be committed. This is, whether you're an individual coach or a team coach, to be advocate for, to be the champion of, to be the one who believes in the team, even on the days when the team doesn't quite believe in itself, to really be able to challenge the team and to see the potential and help the team achieve it. So those are the 5 team coaching competencies in the Pentasphere. That's where the work of team coaching happens. There are, of course, about 25 different skills associated with the different competencies. Let's move on to the 3rd phase briefly. Completion and follow-up and creating next steps. So completion would be exactly what you imagine it would be. It would be looking back. What have we learned as a team over time? It's also what is there to celebrate? Where's the appreciation for the work that we've done together? So completion is a final step of harvesting the learning and recognizing each other on the team for the work that's been done. And of course, because this is a coaching model, it's going to end with, so what's next? So that's the big picture of team coaching in those 3 phases. I want to get back to the question we started with. Why team coaching? Coaching teams is, in my humble opinion, inspiring and enormously gratifying work. That's what I said at the beginning. It's also challenging, it's complex, it's chaotic, frequently intense, sometimes emotional, and it is constantly changing. It's a new field. Organizations know how to select other sorts of professional services, but not really team coaching. So to take this on, to have this desire to work with teams, to make that commitment to team coaching, it is not the easy path. So why team coaching? Simple. Passion and mission. Remember that less than 10% of teams rate themselves as high performing, and I say it doesn't have to be that way. And by high performing, I don't mean just working harder. I mean sustainable. I mean life-giving work, not life-draining jobs. So I say that with complete confidence, it is possible for teams to both get the job done and feel great about doing it. I believe human beings are wired to be in community, and it's the same everywhere in the world. People want to be part of something meaningful. They want to make a contribution, and they want someone to notice. And that's the work we do. That's what this is about. Ultimately, in fact, it's not about what we do as coaches. It's about what we have been given the opportunity, I would even say the sacred opportunity, to help create with teams. Our mission is to change the quality of life at work. That's my commitment. So I'm going to just wrap it up here with a couple of notes, opportunities for you. This is a thank you, and if you want to learn more about the assessment tools or team coaching training and what we offer for ongoing support, there's the Team Coaching International website. If you're interested in attending a webinar, by the way, it's tomorrow, become a certified team performance coach, there's a link to that. And you can register, and I will send you a link to the recording afterwards. So I know this is all last minute, but if you register, I'll send you a link to a recording. And the session tomorrow will show you how you could save up to $500 on the TCI training program. You can join We have a master class, a 3-day in-person class in London at the end of April and in San Francisco in mid-May. There's a link to more information about the master class. We do a monthly Team Coaching Insights webinar. So every month there's a free Team Coaching Insights webinar that you could join. The one for April 13 is best practices for a fast and effective start. There's a link to register for that. And again, if you register for the webinar, whether you make it or not live, you'll get a link to the recording afterwards. So Evelyn is sort of, I feel her tapping on my shoulder. Phil, you said there'd be time for questions.
This is good. We have 4 minutes left, Phil. And just for everyone on the line, I will share the second password for those of you that need it, that are only calling in by phone at the top of the hour. So it'll take a few minutes to share some of your questions with Phil, and Phil's also offered to stay a few minutes after the hour as well. So since we were just on competencies, Phil, one of the questions that came in from Carolyn is, how differently do you see the team coaching competencies from those that are required for one-on-one coaching?
I think they overlap, when we, yes, I think they overlap is the short answer. There are some things that the team coaching competencies specifically address that one-on-one coaching doesn't address, partly because the dynamic in one-to-one coaching is that one person to one client, where with team coaching, you know, I'm not only designing an alliance, a working relationship between coach and team, I'm helping the team create alliance within the team, because that's where the coaching conversation, that's where the work of team coaching really happens. So there's a way that the team coaching competencies are more focused on that particular environment, but they clearly overlap.
Great. And there's a few questions that came in from some folks around, when you coach a team, do you also concurrently coach the leader of that team? And kind of similar to that, what happens if the team leader really pushes back and just wants to have the one-on-one debrief?
Yeah.
How do you handle those situations?
All right. So some team coaches also coach the team leader or individuals on the team. And there's a caution there that having those private, confidential conversations one-on-one with the team leader or the team member can undermine trust between the team coach and the team. So the thing to keep in mind is, as a coach, I have a confidential relationship with my client. If my client is the team, it can be at least awkward to be trying to coach individuals as well. And you can imagine it raises a question in the mind of team members: what are the conversations they are having in private, and are those conversations about me? So if you're going to do that combination of team and individuals or team leader, the advice is lots and lots of transparency and lots of making sure that the design of those relationships is clear. We have a coach, one of our faculty members in Toronto, who does coach the team leader, but it's all about leadership development, not about the team. So that'd be one distinction. And the other question was?
So if the leader really pushes back to just have that one-on-one coaching,
yeah,
or the debriefing.
Yeah, here's the thing. In the discovery process, before there's a statement of work or a proposal, I want to be sure that this team is a good candidate for team coaching. And if the team leader is not behind it from the beginning, that team may not be a good candidate for team coaching. If I don't have the buy-in from the team leader for a team coaching process, I want to push back on, is this the right process to be engaged in for this team? So be a different story if we're halfway down the road and we realize we've got a team leader who's the resistant team member. But getting clear, setting clear expectations at the front end, I think helps immensely in that.
Great. Well, I've got several more questions for you. And I know, Phil, you had mentioned that you'd be willing to stay a few more minutes. So
Yep.
I'll share those questions with you, but I just wanted to let Adam know that at this point, Adam, you can stop the recording and I will share the second password. It's only for those of